Hi there, everybody. I don't know how to qualify this particular project, but it is kind of an experiment slash challenge. This gentleman right here, David, gave me this image to work on as to see what I could do with it. We needed to eliminate this guy in blue right here. Now, the problem is, you think of this in terms of extracting somebody from an image, but what happens is when you try to pull somebody out of an image so they're no longer there, it leaves a gap behind them. For instance, where his head is, right directly behind him, is a framed document of some kind. And once that his head's gone, what do we put behind his head? Because the rest of that document isn't going to suddenly appear because his head's no longer there. Same thing with this corner of the frame. Same thing with the wall that's back there. It's not going to magically be there when he's taken out of the picture. The drapes only extend down to where his hand is visually, but we know the drapes are going to come on down. We don't know how far, but I decided I would go ahead and take the drapes down to her arm. I think we can tell from here that the shadow of the drapes is right about here, but that kind of makes an uncomfortable image to just have that shadow all of a sudden. So we've got the shadow from this guy's arm and glass and his body and everything else. Then we have this, whatever this is in the corner, to get rid of. Now, David, his mom, and this gentleman all will remain. So here's the final product. He's gone, and basically this is fixed. And what I mean is it's fixed with fake things. This picture frame couldn't be salvaged. There's not enough information there to do anything with. So this frame is recreated. I darkened the image back here. Basically, let me explain why. I've got a brother-in-law that's a master carpenter. And some of you that have been in my trainings before know the story. But the reason, and I asked him, what makes you a master carpenter versus a regular carpenter? And he explained to me that a master carpenter is one that is able to hide his mistakes better than other people. Well, this is a lot the same thing. I'm not really covering my mistakes with this. In some cases, it may be, but imperfections are being covered up a little bit by darkening things down a little bit, and instead of trying to salvage a frame, simply making my own. Now I'm going to turn some of these layers on, starting down here at the bottom. You see this image is just basically a copy, except for this little strip right here. You see that some of the wall I've basically copied into here. And this is what, instead of extracting this guy is covered up. And so are things like this wire, encased wire coming down the wall. Does that really add anything to the picture? And where would that stop? It would probably go all the way down this wall, which is an ugly feature. So I decided, after replicating some of this pipe going down, I decided that's not very pretty, and I just eliminated it altogether. So let's go ahead and turn some more things on. If you look right here at David's glasses, you'll see a little chunk appear and disappear. So that's all that's on that layer. And we move on up, and we've got some wall copied in over this gentleman. Some more wall. Extending the wall. So we're kind of going up in pieces that lighten that piece of the wall. That's just a lightening and darkening feature. And here you see some of the pipe being replicated. Kind of like seeing the story being read a page at a time. Here is a cover-up of the frame taking place. Here's the drapes being extended down. Here's a new wall. You see this guy's body is slowly being zipped away, and this is an adjustment layer making that wall back there a little darker than this wall here. Putting a shadow at that corner. Now another strip basically that's covering that electrical conduit. There, the man's being covered up some more, and a little bit more. Then the frame right here, put in. More drape being adjusted until we finally get up here to putting some shadows in, fixing some areas up there. So now you see if we turn this on, nothing's changed because all of the layers are now lit. So I'm going to show you how I went about some of these things real quick. Okay, so here is the image raw. This is the way it looked. I did some changes to it, I will admit that. I went into image size and I brought this up in size and quality. Notice that I put in here in the drop down by cubic smoother, and I wanted it to be roughly an 8 by 10. We can crop the little bit of excess off of that, and I wanted it to be 300 ppi so David could save this. So we see a few flaws in the image right off the bat. The wall has a couple of little specks, but that is really not a big deal compared with the fact we've got to get rid of this guy that's having a drink. Now, if we select the guy, so let me just do a quick select on him and to show you what I mean. And we don't want the shadow particularly over here. So I'm holding down the Alt key, that would be the Option key on a Mac, to deselect any of that. We need to get rid of that shadow too. Let me get this part out. We don't want David's glasses to get wiped out in the process. Oops. Now, if we go to select and mask, you'll see we've got the picture of the guy. This is all the way down. So we don't have his hair yet. So leaving this top tool on will allow us to go ahead and select more up here. And now we've got too much because the hair color, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. The hair color and the background are so close. You can't really do this justice with this particular tool. It's not bad around David. His hand, the shadow selected. If we try to hold down the Alt or Option key, we can get rid of some of this stuff. You see, it's cutting the head back off again. So the beauty of using this tool is the fact that we can save this with a mask. So we can go down here to output to new layer with layer mask. So then we can go like that, and we end up with this guy in this image, and we can fine tune it with this mask. So if we want more of him cut away, we just turn on the brush and we can paint with black, and we can start erasing basically, or we're not erasing anything, we're only painting over here in this mask. So let's just rough it right now so you can, because this isn't what I did to the image at all anyway. Sorry about that. Sometimes hit the Windows key and get the whole thing to disappear. This is just a real quick deal so I can show you how effective masking can be. Now when we get soft areas like this, that's not usually what we want or prefer. If we click on the brush itself and change the hardness, then we can eliminate some of that hard edge, or soft edge, I'm sorry. Now obviously this isn't the ideal hair shape. I'll switch back to white, make this a little bit bigger, and I can bring back as much of the hair as I want to. And we'll say that that looks a lot better. And then I'm going to switch back to painting with black, and I can kind of refine these edges around here. And that looks okay too. So if I want to load up this mask, I can just hold down my Control or Command key on a Mac, click on this mask, and notice we have the marching ants. So now I can go to this image and punch this guy out of there. So to punch him out, I need to go to this layer right here. So I'm going to double click on it because you can't edit the original. I'm going to create a new layer and just put underneath this so we have something behind it. I'm just going to fill that with black, and I'm going to go to this layer and punch this guy out of the picture. So we'll just go over here and hit backspace and delete. So it's not perfect, but you see we've knocked the guy out of the image. Did that really help our cause at all? Because he's knocked out. If I turn this off, you see he is gone from the image. But what was behind the guy obviously is not there. So we have to recreate what's in the background. I'm going to get rid of all this because that was just to show you. Let me go back over here and revert. I just wanted to show you that you can't extract the guy. That simply doesn't do the job. That doesn't help at all. It just creates a black or a blank space, see through the image. So what we have to do is start building things on top to cover him up with. So it's a whole different ball game. What I do is start with some of the more difficult things first. Well, in this image, it's all difficult because it's this guy. He's the thing that has to go. So let me show you a couple of things that I did real quick. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. I'm holding down the Control key, holding down the space bar at the same time, and left clicking the mouse. So what you can do if you want to copy the drapes, you turn on the Marquee Tool and just get a general selection around the drapes themselves. Now, one of the things I do a lot of is copying background and pieces of this and pieces of that, but you don't want to just get a regular selection and deal with that. Sometimes you want specific sizes and angles and so forth. For example, this picture frame. If I want to try to copy this, you can't do it with that tool, right? If I transform it, it's transforming the image. So that's no good. What we need to do is just make a general selection. Just click and drag, and then go up to Select and Transform Selection. Now you notice this says F12. That's not normal. I went into my Edit and went down to Keyboard Shortcuts, which is slightly off the screen. You can't see it. And I made this particular tool, Transform Selection, into the F12. So now if I press F12 on my keyboard, I can transform this selection into whatever shape I want it to be in. So if that's the edge of the frame, and go down here, so we can, kind of keep the same perspective. Double click it. You can't do that with the regular marquee alone. You have to use the select transform selection. So again, this time I can just grab some of the curtain and do a Control J, Command J on a Mac. And you notice over here in the layers palette, there's that little piece of curtain. If I turn on the move tool, here's the curtain, right? So I'm going to move that down. And you see, this isn't horrible, but what we can do is transform this piece. So Control T or Command T on a Mac, and we can kind of move this around, bring it up a little bit, and just kind of twist things to make them look a little bit better. And let's see, we can take a peek under it, and we can bring it on down if we want to. I want to bring it out a little bit more. I'm holding down the Control key as I do this. And this doesn't have to be perfect, because what we're going to do is mask some of this off. So I'll double click right here, and that's where we are on that piece of curtain. I'm going to go over here and click on the square donut, which is the mask, and put this mask on here. With the mask, remember, we can paint in a mask with black and white. The black, and turn on paintbrush, and we can just paint and kind of make that blend together. Now this is on 100%, so it's going to whack this material real quickly. If you can see, there's a tiny little bit of black right here that represents that. I'm going to do a Control Alt Z. I think that's Control Z would have done it, because I only need to step back one step. I want to lower the opacity here quite a bit, and now I'm going to paint, and I just want these two to just magically blend together. That's the beauty of a mask. Now you can't even tell where these two came together. Now we want this down here to cover as much of this guy as we can. It's not going to cover a lot, but we don't want to cover David's mom. So I'm going to zoom in just a little bit, and now we start painting this out of the way. I'm going, remember, this is turned down to 37%. So if we jack that up, and I can click and drag right on the word opacity, and now when we paint, we're bringing her back. And if we go too far, which I did, intentionally, believe me. Now I can paint with white, switch these two, and I can bring that back. Now that's kind of a hard brush, so let me undo that, Control Z or Control Z, and I'm going to go up here and smooth that back out. Zero hardness means 100% smooth. So zoom in a little bit more, make my brush a little bit smaller, and just paint. And I'm not getting rid of anything, I'm only hiding it with this mask. So you can't do that with the brush being hard. It needs a nice soft brush, otherwise you kind of cut it. Now, so we can add even more curtain at this point to bring it on down. So we can turn right around and just make a copy of this. What I'm going to do is turn on the Move tool, hold down the Alt key, Option on a Mac, and click and drag, let go, and it makes an exact copy of what we already did. So I'm just going to drag that on down. I can drag it till we've, overlapping here a little bit. And we already have the mask on here that we created for the other layer, so now we can paint a little bit more. So you hopefully are starting to see what's taking place here. Now I'm painting right on the layer, and it has to be highlighting the mask. So paint with black, switch it to black, and again, we don't want to reveal that down here. We want press X and paint with white to cover this part, and X again to let her hair through. See what's happening? We're actually getting this curtain behind her now. Alright, so that's the trick on the curtain, and we can do Control T and bring that down some more. Of course, we'll have to adjust the mask. We're just kind of stretching this out, and we can hold down the Control key and move that a little bit if we need to. Double click inside or hit Enter, and we need to get rid of some of that wall that we also captured, and we just mask that back off. I'm not worried about making this perfect. I'm just showing you how I got to where I did with David's mom. And now I went too far. You can see this guy's blue shirt showing through. So I make this a little bit smaller. I'm using left bracket and right bracket to make this brush bigger and smaller. So now I'm going to paint with white. So I can press X to change this the color that's on top, just toggling black and white. White will let that cover up. If I press X, it will let you see through to the layer it's underneath. Alright, so we're constantly painting. Now this is on this layer, so we can blend this back in as well. We need something else, something more, and this is this layer to do some more covering up. But we've already got the guy's arm covered with the drapes, and we just need to put some wall over there. Now, anywhere you see these little flaws, like where these are blended, let's see here, we need to drop the opacity, because when you're blending these things, it's too easy to go too fast. So we can press X here, and you see the edges, and then press X again and make them go away. And what we can do Anywhere you see a little flaw, you can use the clone stamp tool to make things, just kind of come together a little bit more. I don't recommend fine-tuning the curtain with the clone stamp tool until you're close to being done. All right, now the guys where the glass is. Well, let's take on the wall here. This conduit is not helping the image. So I'm going to say that the curtain, we've done a pretty good job on it. I'm going to merge these two together. Control E. And we can either preserve the mask or we can not. I'm going to say preserve it. You can see what we've created thus far. So if I want to still fine-tune this mask a little bit, I can. Chances are not good that I would do that, but I can. So let's go up here now. We need to be on the layer that has the information on it. If we try to cover this pipe using this layer, this is what it was on, it's not going to have the information on it to cover the pipe because that information is on this layer, the background. Now what I did was select that conduit pipe, and what I did was just drag a selection around it like this. Again, this is one of those things that the rectangular marquee tool didn't do a perfect job as. You see, got a very little here and a lot on this side. Again, we need to transform the selection, and what we're going to do is hold down the control key, because all we want to do is fill that pipe with wall. I want a little bit of room around it, but not much. So we'll say that's about right. I'm going to double click inside that. And what I'm going to do is create a brand new layer up here. Just click on the new layer icon. And notice we have, if we turn on the rubber stamp tool, we can use all layers. So this is going to not only look at the layer below it for information, it's also going to see the background. Now there's nothing on this layer that it's going to pick up because I'm going to be cloning from right in here to fill this. But I want it on a separate layer in case I have to, fine tune it a little bit. So I select the rubber stamp, clone stamp. I'm going to sample from in here, so I'm holding down the Alt key or Option key on a Mac, and I'm coming over here, and I don't want this to be 100% either, because otherwise you're going to see a pattern develop. So we're just going to try it at 65. So we're just going to go down this, and we go a little bit. Now you can still see the pipe through it, so we're going to go right back up here and run it down there again. And I'm going to do a Control H, which hides the bounding box. It's still there. The bounding box is still there, but we can see what we've accomplished. Now, obviously, we can see the hard lines that are going up and down this. Now, that's why it's a good idea when you're making those selections to create a little bit of a feather on it. So what I'm going to do is get rid of this. The only thing on that layer is that. So I'm going to do a Control A, which selects everything on the layer, and then hit backspace or delete, and that gets rid of, and do a Control D to get rid of that. We're going to make the selection again, But let's just feather this by, say, 2 pixels. And we'll make selection going down again. And we'll do the transform selection, holding down the Control or Command key. We're just going to move this thing around to get what we want. Double click inside. Running a little bit close right here, but I think we'll be fine. So I'm going to switch to the clone stamp tool again. I'm going to click here with the Alt key or Option key down. This is where I'm sampling good information from to fill in here. So here we go. Click here and paint here. And we got to get rid of this guy anyway, so it doesn't hurt to paint right on top of his head. Going right back up there and painting again. Let's sample here and paint some in there and go back up. Now let's hide the selection again, Control H or Command H. Still see some lines here, but I think we're in pretty good shape overall, because what we're going to do now is put a mask on there, the square donut, and again we're going to paint with black and white along this edge. Now I didn't leave a lot of edge, so this is going to be a little tedious, so I'm just painting a little bit in there. To try to make it blend with what's already there. If we go too much, the pipe comes back out, right? So we still see a little bit of pipe through there. I cloned a little bit more down here. What I'm going to do now on this layer, select this, not the mask, right here, and I'm going to turn on the clone stamp tool again, and now I'm going to sample from in here and just paint a little bit. I've still got the Control H, so let's do a Control D to make sure it's deselected. So holding down the Alt key to sample, and we'll just kind of paint a little bit in there. Try to make this match up. So we're starting to just make this thing fit right in, just like it really belongs there. And sometimes it doesn't hurt to just go ahead. We don't really need that mask anymore. So if I right click over here on the mask, I can say apply layer mask, and then we've just got this regular layer that's covering that. So I'm going to Alt key again, and let's try up here, get that a little bit. I'm going to make this a little smaller, left bracket key, whoops, wasn't small enough. Left bracket key again, sample that. Still a little bit strong. Let's go with that. Okay, it's blending pretty nicely. So if we back out, Control minus or Command minus, you'll see the wall isn't looking too bad right there. So that's that's some of the steps needed in this to cover this guy up, basically cover these problems. What I started to say, cover this guy. What we need to do now is a big part of him will be taken care of by putting this panel, wood panel, behind David. So I'm going to make a new layer, go over to layer, new layer icon, and I'm just going to go ahead and click on here and say back, or let's see, wall panel. So all we need to do is sample this color right here. So if I click I, the letter I, that samples that color. Here it is. So now I'm going to make a marquee selection using this back here as my starting place, and I need this much wall to cover up things, because if you see right here, that's part of that guy's clothes. David's is coming down like this, and this guy's right here. So we need to fill that much in with wall. It may not make sense right now, but hopefully it will soon. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to fill this square with this color. To do that, we can just hold down the Alt or Option key and hit backspace. If we wanted to fill the square with this color, the white, we'd hold down Control or Command backspace. But we want the beige color, the tan color, so Alt or Option backspace. Alright, so right away you're thinking, well, this is crazy. This isn't helping. Well, look how much of that guy we've covered up. Right there. Yeah, we covered up David too, but we're going to bring David right back out and this part of her mom. Simply again, the layer mask, the square donut. So we come over here and we're going to paint with the brush. Letter B will work. And we're just going to go ahead and run the opacity up so you don't panic. We can go ahead and see David. So we're not erasing anything. I'm going to make my brush bigger, right bracket key to make it bigger. We're just revealing David again. Now I've let some of the blue back in. That's okay. We're going to fix that. Alright, so maybe that is part of David's. I think that guy's got white pants on though. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and bring all of David back real quick. So he's back now. And now I'm going to switch back to white, pressing X, the letter X. And now I'm going to go around those edges and bring the tan back, the wall. Now I'm going about this more hurriedly than I would if I were doing this for a client, let's say. But I don't want to spend all day working on the video. So we got some of David's glasses that covered up here. We're going to fix all that. And switching with the X to bring mom's arm and shirt back. We'll fine tune this as we go. We get all of her arm back. Switching again with the letter X. And switch again with X because I got some shirt here I need to bring back. Switching again. And switching again to bring her hand back. I want the bar, the chair here, we want that back. And pressing X again to go to white. We're just trying to cover that part up. Alright. When you have areas like around David's hair, you don't want that to be 100%. So we're dialing that back. Notice I'm clicking on opacity and dragging this back. And now I'm just going to paint Now what I did at the end of my work on this image, anywhere that there was some blue showing through from the guy's shirt, I went around and cloned good information, good hair back in. Okay, so we've got switch back to black to bring some of this back. His glasses have all but disappeared. So some of that we don't want to see. So, oops, brush, switch back to white. So we're trying our best to get rid of the blue from the guy's shirt. And brush has to be a little bit smaller right in here. Again, when you come to the end of the image, the restoration, you can go in there and fine-tune the blue with clone stamp, or paint some of the tan in and the blue out, so forth. So let's see here. Let's get this a little bit better here. When I start painting, I get a little bit intense, and I usually quit talking for long periods of time and just work instead. So these things, you know, some people are like, oh my gosh, you got to do all that. Ugh. Yeah. There's an art to all of this, and art takes time. So you can see where the wall is starting to work now. We've certainly got more wall to put up where the guy in the blue shirt is, but guess where that wall is coming from? It's coming from up here, because that's all we have to work with. So what we would do is, again, now that this is covered up, that pipe, remember the conduit is up in there. So what I would do is go ahead and, you know, merge that down, because we want to be able to copy from a large area. You don't want to just be able to copy from this tiny little patch in here and make all of that other area. So again, I would probably bring this layer down, click and hold it, and bring it down here and merge it onto the background layer. Okay, so you could do a Control E, and that'll merge that down. I wouldn't merge any of the other stuff down because you may want it to adjust these things yet. So now you can take more of the wall, use the Marquee Tool, and again, if I just drag a selection, I got some curtain, I got some frame, I got frame up here. Again, I'm going to go to Select and transform my selection, hold down the Control key or Command key, and get as much of clean wall as I can get. Although it's a strange shape, it's better to have excess information in my thinking. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. I'm going to double click that and just do a Control J. Remember to be on the background layer, because that's where the wall actually is. So Control J. Now we bring that piece of wall down, and we can put another mask on that to make that fit. So we click on this mask and we turn on a paintbrush again, And we want the opacity maybe a little bit lower than that. Make the brush a little bit bigger. Let's zoom in a little bit so we can see these edges. And we're just going to paint with black. Switch that with X. And we're just going to paint that a little bit. Now see, that's blended in. And we can do that repeatedly. And actually, we need a little bit more wall to cover up this area right here. What we can do is turn on the Move tool, press the letter V, hold down the Alt key, and click, and we get an exact copy of what we just had. Now obviously we can get rid of that frame altogether. Of course that's going to look a bit odd if we do, but I'm going to show you here soon how we're going to fix that frame. It's a little tricky, but it's not bad. Okay, we can go ahead and adjust this a little bit. We overlap that. Here's our mask, so turn on our brush again, paint with black, and just go down the edge of that. Remember, you got to keep the opacity down a little bit so these two blend together. I got a little bit too much gone here, so I switch it back to white and paint that back in. Now I'm going to turn on the Move tool again, press the letter V as in victory, and hold down the Alt key, and here's another copy. But this time I'm going to rotate that completely around. So I'm going to do a Control T, Command T on a Mac, and just kick that around this way, or we can undo that and right click inside of that and say rotate 180. Then kind of line that up. Now this is only gone because it's masked a little bit, so I'm going to double click. I'm going to move that down a little bit so we don't get an exact pattern. We don't need all of this masked out with wall. So I'm going to put that right in here and double click, and I'm going to turn on the paintbrush, press the letter B as in boy, and whoops, Control Z, got to be on the mask now, and we're going to paint that back in, and we want this overlap. Zoom in. Going to paint that with black to get rid of these lines right here, and X to fill that back in a little bit. Now we've got a little bit of white line going through here, a little line, not anything big. I'm going to fix this in the end with the clone stamp tool. So again, the Move tool, hold down the Alt or Option key, and we get another exact copy. Do it again, holding down the Alt key or Option key, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see we've covered pretty much all the wall we need to right there. We're going to add some more into there, but we need to blend this edge a little bit. So I'm going to click on the mask, turn on the brush, and get these edges blended a little bit. And I'm going to say that's fine. Now we've got this wall, and we've overlapped some wall onto our tan wall, right here over David's head basically. So what I'm going to do is I want to cut this off. I don't want that to even exist. So I'm going to load this square up, that's that wall piece, by holding down the Control or Command key and clicking right here in that box. See? Now I'm going to go down all of those little pieces of wall that I created right here and hit backspace. And anywhere that I overlapped it, I'm erasing that junk. Okay? I don't have any more to erase. Now, we've covered up some of David's hair, but remember, the stuff is all masked, so it's not a big deal. All right, we got some picture frame here that's being covered up by the newly created wall. So let's go find that piece. Should be the last one I did, right? Yeah, right there. So again, we're going to go over here on the mask, zoom in. I'm holding down the Control or Command key on a Mac and the space bar and left clicking. I want to bring this back. I don't want that covered anymore, so turn on the brush, black, and this should be hard because that's a straight edge here. So we're going to make this a little bit smaller and click there and shift click down here to make a straight line. Click, shift click, shift click. Now we want this to come back, so switch to white to cover that part up. Zoom back out. So our picture frame is back. Now, you're seeing how I'm slowly repairing this and getting everything back, and we're coming up on 51 minutes and 30-something seconds. So I need to cut some edges here, so to speak. I'm going to fix this frame, first of all, and I'm going to go up here to the top and create a new layer. And this is going to be called frame. And what I'm going to do is click on the Marquee Tool and drag a picture frame. Now, again, the Marquee Tool can't give us this angle. So we need to do the Select Transform Selection, and I'm going to take that up here, and I'm going to make an imaginary line down here and try to keep the angle at the bottom pretty close to the same angle as the top. Double click, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to keep this same frame color, so I'm going to press the letter I on the keyboard to sample that color, and I'm going to fill this layer, frame layer, with that color. So again, we hold down the Alt or Option key and click. Alright, so there's our new picture frame. Looking a little rough. Control D to turn off the marching ants. So I think you see that the picture frame is a little off, but I'm not going to keep adjusting that shape. You will need to play with that to get these angles the same. But right now, for the sake of time, I got to move forward. So I'm going to use the Marquee Tool again. This time I'm going to click and drag inside this and do the Select and Transform Selection again. I want to build the shape of the frame right inside here. And we're going to say that this is perfect here in a second. Double click that, and what we're going to do now is punch that back out. So there's our picture frame. Control D. And what we're going to do, again, you're going to have to take a little more time and make that a little more even all the way around, but you see how to do it. What we need to do now is Control click on this frame icon, layer icon. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit because I want you to see what I do here. I need to go up to Filter and create noise. Add noise. And you see, however we run this, the noise is going to look different. But make sure that Gaussian is marked and monochromatic is marked. Click OK. Doesn't look like a frame quite yet, but this will make it a little bit better. Filter, blur, and motion blur. So now it starts looking more like a frame. Just click OK. When we zoom out to a normal size, do a Control D, it looks more like a frame. You can run dual layers of this and blend them so you can have this going the same way. And what I mean is, here's the frame layer. Do a Control J. Now we have two frames. And I can zoom in again, and I can go to Filter, Blur, Motion Blur, and this time go 0 degrees. And you can either say, oh, I like that just the way it is, or you can blend the two together. Let's try and lighten and see what the effect is. That won't work there. Let's try multiply, which will make it a lot darker. So you can kind of play with that and see what suits your fancy. It's not going to make a lot of difference when it's zoomed out to normal size, which is there. But you really should make your frame nice and even. All right. Let's throw that away. We could switch, let me reload that, and we could make that darker. We could just go up to levels and take that to any color or depth we want to. Okay. And what I did in this particular area, I went under the frame, created a new layer, and call this frame fill. And I basically am going to make the selection here, and again transform the selection and put it inside this area. No wonder it looks side-goggled. I made it side-goggled. Let me do that one more time. A little bit better down here for sure. And the reason why it's a little bit odd is because of this. It should be 0 pixels. So if I do that again with 0 pixels, this is going to work a little bit better. Okay, I'm going to transform the selection again. I've showed you where that is already many times. And for the sake of time, we're going to say that that's really great. I'm going to fill this with black, basically. And to get the default black and white, you just press the letter D as in dog, or default, and turn on a brush and make the brush bigger. You can paint all you want out here. It's not going to do anything because here's where the selection is. And notice my brush is very hard. So Control Z that, and we want to go back here and turn that all the way to soft. And we don't want the opacity to be high. Again, I'll make this a lot bigger and just start filling that. I'm not going to fill that up there because there was some writing up there. Control D to turn that off. Now if I'd had that lined up like a good guy, that wouldn't, those little brighter areas wouldn't be showing. Back here, if you don't have those painted areas like I just created here, which needs to be shadowed. You can't tell if there's writing on there or not. There was some visible writing on it originally, so we have some of that at the top. Now, all we have left is this little piece of that guy's shoulder, and we just need to make some more of this frame, and we could just go to the original background layer and copy maybe this corner right here, and do a Control J and turn on the Move tool, letter V, and what we can do is rotate that, Control T to transform it. Whoa, didn't mean to do that. I need to zoom in a little bit. I just want to grab that piece. And again, what we have to do is kind of stretch and make that fit that corner. And I need to be on top with this now, so I'm going to double click that real quick, because notice some of that is being masked off right there, or cut off. So if I move this now to the top, I'm clicking and holding it down, and then I let it go right there, you see the rest of the frame. So let's do a Control T again. Holding down the Control key, I can resize these edges to better match up with the frame that's there. And then you can blend those two together with a mask. Turn on a brush, change it to black, and make sure that you turn the opacity down. I would turn it down further than that even, and make these pieces come together. I didn't really do a great job lining that up. And what we need to do, let me X that again and bring some of that back, is do a little adjusting on the color on that as well. So we can do that with several tools, but I'm going to do it with levels, and just try to spank that color up, or that lightness up a little bit. Make sure you click on this, which will have it only affect the layer that's on. So you can lighten that up, and you see we've got some stuff here now we need to mask off some more. So if we click here and switch that to black, we can make this stuff go away until we're happy again with how it looks. And I could take the opacity up and make that go a little bit faster. And X again there. And again, we can also clone some of that too. So don't worry about that. I'm going to click up here on this layer and Control E that, and I'm going to also right click on this and apply the layer mask, and turn on the clone stamp tool, hold down my Alt key, come down here, line that up, and you see how that makes that come together a little bit better. Then we can sample this, Alt key or Option key. And again, I'm not going to make this perfect. We just don't have the time. But you see how to fix that. We got this one piece of blue still in there, and we can basically go over here, create a new layer, come over here and sample, and we can just, whoops, it's too big of a brush. Zoom in a little bit more, sample from here, and we need to cut down on the softness a little bit. Okay, and then a little bit smaller, and let's bring the opacity up some. And you have to determine when it's appropriate and when it's not to raise and lower that opacity. You just have to judge it. Now if I sample here, alt click or option click here, and if I click right here once, go down here and hold the shift key down, it'll automatically paint over to that edge. Now we've got some on here, but that's okay. We can mask again, go to the paintbrush and switch that to X, and I'm going to click here, shift click here, back here, shift, holding down the shift each time, and mask that back in. So that's kind of the quick, not as finely finished as you saw the other. If we go over to these pieces of wood that we put in here, or paneling, if we go ahead and select all those, we can find all of them here and shift click to select all those, we can go ahead and do a Control E. So now they're all right there on that one layer, and you can do your clone stamp tool on these to make sure that your seams don't look odd. I think the paint on the wall looks pretty darn good. I did, this is sloppy right here. I'll super duper admit that. But you can fix up a ton of stuff. Go to the top, create a new layer, and we can put that over the top of this. You can do all kinds of things at the last minute to dress things up. Remember, we cut David's hair off with part of that wood, so we need to go down to where that wood is again, and we'll put a mask on it, and we're going to try to bring back David's hair, and we're bringing back some of the blue. That's okay. Remember, we can do that. Press X again to paint with white. And I mentioned that when you get done, to make it a little bit more believable, we're going to at the top we'll put in another layer that says David's hair. And I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I can see. And clone stamp tool, we need the opacity down a little bit more, maybe in the 50% range, and go around anywhere where we see the blue, and alt click or option on a Mac, and we've got the brush too hard. Needs to be all the way over on soft. And we can make a little bit more hair up in here, and down here is still a little heavy. Let's go down to around 30%. Make this brush a little bit bigger, and we're going to sample up in here, getting rid of that blue tinge that's in there. We're not overdoing, we're just putting a little bit. That's why the opacity is way down. We don't want to add hair where there's not hair. That would look abnormal. We're just trying to cover up any of that blue that's seeped in between the hairs. And we've got David fixed back up again. Now, where this panel is kind of crucial. All the stuff that's in the background, we would want to dampen down probably with some black. We want the opacity way down when we do that. Let's see what we got there. That's that. So we're going to put a layer up here above that wall panel and say shadow. And make a large brush. And it's not going to be of David. We don't want the clone stamp tool. We want the brush. Large brush again. And we're going to change that opacity way down there, about 15%, and just paint. Now, I didn't put a shadow in the corner. Let's move. Yeah, that's okay. Again, with this situation, we're going to have to be above that picture frame. Because see, we're causing a deal on the silver frame there. I'm going to move it to the top. Thought I was. Try it again. And let go right there. And now that frame looks better. Then we mask it again because David has gone grayish. And now we're painting with black, and we bring David back faster. We're not going to take a lot of time bringing this back perfectly, but you can see the difference with that shadow that I put up there. Again, we'll put some more back in here, lower that way down. And that's, like I say, that's just to cover up any issues back there in the back. We could go along that back panel back here to make that corner look a little bit more real. We would maybe click here and shift click down here to make that corner look a little bit more real. Should have put that on a different layer. Let me Control-Alt-Z that a couple of times. And we'll put another layer just above that one. Corner. Shadow. And that really should be a little bit smaller. And all I'm doing again is click, go down here, hold down the shift key, click again, and it paints that automatically. I'm going to go to filter, blur, and do a little Gaussian blur on that shadow. Not that much. And then let's just move it a little bit. Move tool, letter V. I want to use the right arrow. Bring that in there. Let's zoom out a little bit. A little more time spent on that shadow would probably help. Put a mask on that, and again paintbrush. Excuse me. And I'll make that a little bit bigger. Kind of smooth that out a little bit. I'm only painting 14% back over that shadow. And that looks a little bit more like a shadow in the corner now. So you see some of the tricks that I employed putting the image together. for David. So again, looking at the whole picture, we've gotten rid of the guy that was back there. Now comes the cropping part. So we can click on the crop tool and say 8x10, 300, and you see the crop marks. David wanted the gentleman on the right to be in there, and so we can probably right there is going to do it. Double click that. So now we have a perfect 8x10, 300 pixels per inch. This will print pretty good. Had I taken more time with the frames and so forth, it would be much better. But you saw what it took to build this in the hour and 15 minutes. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. I'll be glad to address it when and as I can. See you all later. Bye-bye.